Episode of Ask an Expert. I am thrilled to be joined by none other than Jen and Jon Holling. And I was just talking to Jen. I think this is her first time joining us for Ask an Expert, which honestly feels like a crime. I can't believe we haven't gotten you on here sooner. So could not be more excited to have you here. And thank you guys both for taking the time to talk to us tonight.
Thanks.
Yeah, glad to be back. I'm glad you finally realized to bring in the brains of the operation.
Yeah, we're going to bring in the big guns tonight. We're covering the topic of what it takes to kind of get ready for your first FEI event. And it's something that we've gotten requests for multiple times. And I've kind of been racking my brain of like, who is the right person to ask for this? And I finally texted Jon and I was like, who is the right person to ask for this? And he was like, honestly, Jen. I was like, okay, perfect. Well, we have Jen here, who is the expert, and Jon, who is here for moral support.
That's about right.
Yep. Wonderful. Well, guys, thank you so much. I am going to dive kind of right into the questions because we did receive a lot of questions in advance, and I want to make sure that we cover as many of these as we can. And if you are tuning in live, as always, please put your questions in chat and I will definitely relay those to Jen and Jon. But to get us started, kind of, when you have a student or client who is preparing for their first FEI, let's start with the documents and the paperwork and everything that's kind of required on the administrative side. What do you tell them? What do you tell them that they need in order to get ready for their first FEI as far as paperwork goes, and how far in advance do they need to kind of be preparing all of this stuff?
The USEF site says that it takes 8 weeks to get an FEI passport. So I'm going to tell you that if they said 2 months, I'm going to start 3. Right. Because, yeah, paperwork for everybody is problematic.
Even when you're on a first name basis with the staff at USEF, you still have to wait.
Because you also have the post office to deal with. Don't use regular mail. Use UPS. There's the big one. So when you apply for a passport, you have to, there's a great document on the USEF site, and it actually is labeled entering your first FEI. I highly recommend looking at that because I looked at that to kind of direct me today. And it has a lot of these questions answered and a lot of links to all of the paperwork that you need to do.
That's perfect. And can you tell us, like, what is the passport? What is the purpose of that? What kind of information do you need in order to create the passport?
Passport is to identify your horse to make sure you're actually riding the horse. So, because they do check your microchip. So you have to have a microchip, which is easily obtained from your vet. You get the passport, your horse's identification is in that passport. The owners are in that passport. The owners have to be the same owners as listed with your USEF membership. And your horse has to be a lifetime USEF member. The passport, you do not have to have an FEI passport. You can have a national passport for everything up until the 3-star long. So if you're not leaving the country to do your membership.
Which Canada counts as leaving the country, by the way.
Canada is a separate country.
It is. It's kind of like a big state, but really it's actually a country.
Ow! That was the pinch. It's America's hat.
Yeah. So
if you are planning to do your FEI in the United States, you can do it with a national passport, which is a lot less expensive. It's $50. And once you do that, you can still get your FEI number for you and your horse. But you still have to meet all of the other the requirements, the vaccination requirements and everything else. But it's a lot less expensive and easier to obtain.
And the one thing I'd add there, which I'm sure Jen will explain more clearly than I would, is the flu vaccines seem sometimes to blow people's minds. You have to have a primary and a booster, right?
Yes.
And it doesn't matter if your horse has been up to date on all of its flu vaccines to that point. If you don't have record of it and you don't have record of that initial booster series, you're going to have to redo it. So you need to plan ahead and know that.
Right. You have to have 2 vaccines. The rules actually changed on January 1st, 2024. You have to have 2 vaccines within, hang on, I even wrote it down, within 21 to 60 days. So your first one, and then 21 to 60 days to your second one. And then your third one has to be within 6 months of that, 6 months and 21 days, actually. And you can compete with the first initial 2. You don't need all 3 to go to an FEI. You need the first 2. And you cannot have a vaccination within 7 days of an FEI competition.
Okay, so doing that math, you should really get your first one no less than 2 months out from your... Oh, sorry guys, we can't hear you for a second. Hold on just 1 second. Oh, sorry, Jen, answer that question again. Sorry, we lost your audio for a second.
You do have to have them within 60 days. You need your 2 vaccines. So you'll have to start that. And you can get the vaccines before you have your passport because your vet can keep record of it.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if you do that, they've got to keep track of it. You need to let your vet know, like, hey, I'm going to be getting a passport. Keep track of the numbers for this vaccine so that they have to be able to write it in.
Yes, they have to stamp and sign your passport and put the batch and lot numbers for the vaccination so they can keep that for you in their files.
Okay, so far we know we need the flu vaccine and we need the passport. Do we also need a USEF membership?
You need your up-to-date USEF membership. Your horse needs a USEF lifetime membership. You need that in order to get your passport. And then once those are up to date, and again, there's another form on the USEF site, requirements for all USEA and USEF levels. It's under forms, and that will tell you what you need as far as your membership goes, and it's up to date for 2024 because I just checked. You need to have all of that to get the passport. So you can't get the passport till all of that is up to date anyway. They'll hold you accountable to it.
Okay. So it seems like if I was starting out in this process for the first time, I would probably start with the passport because it seems like in order to get the passport, you're going to need to like check the boxes of all these different things that you're going to need in order to get the passport, which will kind of do the whole process for you is kind of what I'm hearing from you. And I would just recommend to anybody listening to just start the passport process well in advance of actually needing it, because who knows what could go wrong, especially when you're dealing with like mail and these organizations that don't always work that efficiently.
The form for the passports on the USEF site is called the Passport Services Application. There's one form, whether it's a national or an FEI passport, and you just check the boxes and put your credit card number in there to sell your life away. And then, so that part's very easy to actually apply for it.
Super cool
And
and helpful.
you definitely want to do it early, Kinsey. You're totally right. As someone who has gone to a horse show and had to have a passport mailed to the horse show, hoping it showed up on time, you don't want to deal with that stress. So just get it ahead of time.
Okay. We'll check that box. And I realize I'm backtracking a bit here, but I think I probably should have started with, can you guys just tell us what an FEI competition is? Like what really differentiates, what falls into the FEI competition category?
More money.
It's just more expensive.
So you have shorts, which are basically just FEI governed horse trials. If you have any ambition of doing a long, you're going to need to do some shorts. I guess you can do it up to a 2 long, right, without having done shorts. But basically, at an FEI competition, you're going to have, from a layman's term, just as a competitor, what do I get? Jen's right. You spend more money. You usually, in the dressage test, if you want to wear your fancy, ridiculous tailcoat, you can. You
can't carry a whip.
You can't carry a whip in the test, nor can you carry it around the outside of the ring. But you're going to have a different dressage test. The show jumping is actually a little bit bigger at FEI for the level than the horse trial. Cross country is virtually the same. So that really isn't much different. So it's a little, I don't know if I'd say they're a more difficult test, but they're a little different test. The show jumping is going to be a little bit bigger.
Okay, and the levels are 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star.
Correct. You're also going to be under different rules for warm-up. And none of those rules are really going to affect you too much, other than just knowing you're going to have stewards, you're going to have people watching you. One thing that's super important to know, which I almost got caught out at Terra Nova last year. At an FEI competition, when you're all done with your dressage test and you're walking out of the ring, you nor anybody with you can give your horse a treat until after the steward sees your horse.
Wow. Okay, that's a really specific rule.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I'm not sure we're ready for specific rules yet or not, but I got caught out with that and almost got myself in trouble. So just know that.
Wow. What is the background there?
It comes from the dressage world. I don't know what people were doing, but they were being a little sneaky with something after the test, fiddling around with their horses' mouths, and they just decided the easiest way was to make sure that when you finish your test, you don't touch your horse's mouth until after the steward touches your horse's mouth.
Okay. So we have the dressage is slightly different. The show jumping is slightly different. The cross country is not different as long as you're at a short, correct? And if you're at a long, we're dealing with a much longer cross country course.
Yes.
And then there are additional elements to an FEI event. And can you talk us through kind of what those additional elements are as a competitor?
So the first thing is you have to start, how many days out is it?
Two. Well, three. 72.
3 days out, you have to start logging your horse's temperature morning and night in the FEI horse app. It's not difficult, but you do have to go online and get the FEI horse app, and there's a temperature section in there. You input your horse. I think you do that putting the number, your horse's FEI number in there, which is your passport number, basically. And then morning and night.
But you also need an FEI number for the year. So you have a passport number and an FEI number, which are the same, but you need to pay for that every year for the horse and the rider.
Okay, so you got to put your temperatures in, which means you got to take your horse's temperature morning and night for the 3 days beforehand, which when you got one horse is no big deal. When you have like 6, it's a real pain. It's a hassle. But you need to do that. And then when you show up to the event, you're going to have to take your horse out of the horse trailer, and you are going to be met by veterinarians.
Pause.
Sorry?
Before you get to the event, on top of your temperatures, you have to do the self-certification form.
I'm getting stressed out. How about you people?
They'll warn you if you get there and haven't done it, they will send you a way to go and do it. And then you can come back. But there's two things you have to do on the horse app.
What is the self-certification form?
It's you verifying that your horse is healthy and that you've been taking the temperatures and that you can go online and you can go to the site and you're okay. You don't usually do that.
No, I do it. I just am hearing everything you have to do for FEI, and you guys maybe should just go horse trials.
No, you just need a really good friend.
I'm sweating.
It's a lot. It is a lot. And so I think the one thing I will say with all of this, when you're going to your first FEI, just when you show up, if you make a mistake or you're worried you make a mistake, ask the officials, ask the stewards, ask the vets.
Great.
They want to help you. They kind of want to catch me out because I'm usually a jerk, but they want to help you guys. So don't be shy if you think, I'm not sure I did this right. What do I do? Just ask them. They're going to help you, especially if you're doing a 1-star.
Yes.
That's what that whole level is about, quite honestly. So you've done your temperatures. You've done your self-certification. Now you got to get your horse off the trailer. You have to walk it up to the vet. You have to have your own thermometer. You have to have somebody to hold your horse, and then you have to take your horse's temperature, and then you have to show it to the vet.
Is this at a short or just a long?
This is at a short, right? So you have to do that. Then at a short, you also have to jog your horse for the vet so that they can make sure it's not like head bobbing lame. I will say we have Kurt, who a lot of you guys know. He can be a little bit tricky. So we tell the vets we're not taking its temperature out in the middle of the parking lot. I'm not going to die, and I'm not going to have my wife get kicked in the head again. So we demand politely that we get to go to a stall. They follow us. They hate me, like I said, and we take the temperature in a stall. If you have a problem with any of this stuff and you're worried about your safety, your horse's safety, or the vet's safety, just say I'm worried about the vet's safety, and then they will follow you in to the barn and just ask them. They're usually very accommodating that way.
Okay. So we've taken their temperature. We've done the initial jog. We've just arrived, and this is the first thing we're doing when we get off the trailer. What happened after that? Is there anything on that first day? Anything else to be aware of?
Well, the temperature thing doesn't stop. Through the whole event, you have to keep taking your temperature morning and night. So just don't forget that, because I've done it. You get rocking, you get to the horse show, you've done your temperature with the vet, and then you wake up the next morning and you're like, oh no, I forgot to take my temperature last night. Or it's cross country day and you forget. Like, you can forget. They'll let you go back into the app and you can do them retroactively. But if you don't take the temperature, what are you going to do, right? We all know what you're going to do, but we're not going to discuss what you're going to do. But you got to put the temperatures in.
Okay. And when is the next thing that you have to do the horse inspection on the first day, or is the next thing the riders meeting?
Well, okay. So are we talking short or long?
You tell me.
That was the horse inspection. That initial jog was the horse inspection at a short. They do that without the jog at a long, because the jog becomes more formal.
So just to be clear, what Jen's saying is if you do a short, you do all the temperatures and check the wellness of the horse, and at the short, you jog in the parking lot on a halter. If you're doing a long, you usually will show up on Monday or Tuesday. You get settled in that day. You do everything except for the jog, and then on Wednesday, usually the day before dressage, sometimes they'll do it Thursday morning at a smaller event, you have to present your horse all prettied up and dressed up to the ground jury, and you do your formal vet inspection, your formal jog for the ground jury and the vet there.
Okay. And I want to ask more questions about that jog that happens at the long events, but what happens next? Also, so you go through dressage, and then I know a riders meeting happens at some point. When does that happen, and what is that?
Dressage before the cross country.
Oh, hold on, wrong. So if it's a short, it's usually after the dressage before the cross country. If it's a long, you usually have a rider meeting before the first jog, right? You have it before the jog. Usually, I'm trying to remember now because everyone has been so different, but usually the day before the jog, they have a rider meeting, and so on Tuesday, they'd have a rider briefing, right? Is that right?
Introduce the ground.
No, Wednesday. It'd be Wednesday. I'm sorry. It'd be the day of the jog before the jog. So let's say you go to Kentucky, the jog's at 3 p.m. Usually the rider briefing would be at noon or 10 or 11. You have your rider briefing, and then right after the briefing at a long, the courses are usually open. And then what usually happens is the riders will go out and walk around the course and then come back and get ready for the jog. Okay.
And how do you find out where those rider briefings are and what time they are and when they are?
Most events will do a very good job communicating that over the public address. They will usually be sending out lots of emails. The other thing that most events do now is they utilize WhatsApp. So when you get to most events, at least in the Southeast, there's usually a WhatsApp group. You go into the office or the scoreboard, ask them for the little QR code, and you scan it, and then boom, you get put into the WhatsApp group. So if you don't have WhatsApp, you might want it, because it does make it a lot easier to navigate those FEI events that use it.
There's also a board outside of every office that will say all of the rider meetings and any cross-country changes, and it'll say your rider representatives, your ground juries. You'll be able to show jump it along if you want there. They'll have the times for that. All the information is on a major board right outside the secretary's office.
Okay. And Emily Holmes just put a good comment in chat. She said, I wish more people came to the first briefing. So these briefings are not a requirement?
They can't, no, they're not. I mean, they're mandatory, but what are they going to do when you don't show up? They're not going to eliminate you for not coming. But Emily is, as always, absolutely right. Go. And if you can't go for some crazy reason, like you're running around trying to convince everybody you shouldn't have to wear your cross-country vest in dressage, then you would send a representative to the meeting so that you could at least get all the information back.
What kind of information are they sharing in those meetings?
Well, one thing, they introduce the ground jury, so you know who they are. They tell you who the course designer is. They might say to you things like, so because it's an FEI competition, let's go with the longs especially. There's going to be set times when you can go jump your horse because they have to have the ring stewarded. There has to be a steward watching you jump so that you don't break the rules and do naughty things. So they will say, this is how you, these are the times we're going to have the rings open for jump schools. Usually they'll say, if you know you need a different time, let us know. Usually the stewards are incredibly accommodating. They're there to make your life easy. So they will do whatever they can to help you. But keep in mind, when you ask them questions, it has to be something that everybody that's competing has an opportunity to do. So you can't say, I want the ring to myself to school at 2 o'clock. There's also going to be ring familiarizations for the dressage so that you can go in and get a meander around the ring. Sometimes they'll let you trot and canter around. Sometimes they'll let you in the actual ring. Sometimes they just let you walk around the outside. It really depends on what the footing's like, how accommodating the organizer is able to be to the competitors.
Okay, and when does that ring familiarization usually happen?
Usually it is the day before your test. So let's just, as an example, say that you ride dressage on Thursday. All Thursday horses usually get to familiarize on Wednesday afternoon or evening. If it's Friday, then usually those horses get to do it on Thursday. The reason they do it that way, one, is it can be total chaos with all of the horses in the ring at the same time, and two, if you can do it both days, then the Friday horses actually get 2 chances to familiarize in the ring, while the Thursday horses would only get 1. So when you show up and you have a Friday test and you're annoyed that you don't get to go in on Wednesday night, that's why, because they're trying to keep a level playing field.
Makes sense. Okay, so you arrive, if it's a short, you do your horse inspection. If it's a long, you just do the temperature, and then you do the horse inspection probably the following day or following few days. And then prior to dressage, you do ring familiarization. You might have a briefing if you're at a long. If you're going to have a brief, if you're at a short, your briefing is going to be after dressage. And then cross country day. Is there anything different about cross country day at a short or a long than you can expect at just a regular recognized event?
So before I let Jen take that part over, I will just say whether you're in a long or a short, there is always a rider meeting on Friday. And that is to say, hey guys, everything looks awesome out there. Have a great time. Stay safe. Look after your horses. We've also changed 10AB. Make sure you guys know that. Or we're concerned about this. Or we had the riders had a concern here, and so we've made this adjustment to the course. You're going to find all that information out on Friday at the meeting. There might also be stuff as far as logistics of getting you down to the cross-country start box. Any of that kind of stuff in that Friday meeting is super important. And that's the one that, honestly, I usually end up skipping and then regret, because I'm like Friday night, panicked, walking. I don't want to go to the meeting. I just want to know my line. And then I find out, oh, this changed. It would have been nice to know that before I was out walking. So that is an important meeting to go to as well.
Is there one meeting for all the levels? If there's a 2, 3, 4 and star at the same event, is it one meeting, or is there a meeting per level?
It's usually all the levels at the same time, all the ground juries there, and then they'll sort of talk you through, like, okay, for the 4-star, this is the change. 3-star looks amazing. 2-star, this is your change. 1-star looks great. Have a good time.
Okay, Jen, talk us through cross country day. What to expect?
There are people at the end of a short and a long to check for the welfare of your horse. At a short, you don't have to stay. There's ice usually there, which they will tell you at the briefing if there is ice at the end, so you can stay and cool your horse out at the end, but you don't have to. At a long, you do have to stay, and they take your temperature and you have to cool down. They're with the different breeds of horses that we have now, they're much more open-minded to letting the hotter horses go home, because a lot of horses don't cool down at the end. They stay quite up and they need to go where it's quiet and calm. But everything that is available to you, the ice, the cold water, all of your buckets and everything, there's a space for those there at the end of the longs for you to take your tack off and cool your horse out. They usually provide good shade, or some sort of covered area so that you can get away from the sunshine, at least down here in the south. But they're looking just to make sure that the horses are actually adequately cooled out after doing that longer distance.
Are there things you're not allowed to do in that area? Like kind of like John, you said, like when you get out, when you finish your dressage test, you can't immediately give them a treat. Is there anything like that in the cross country cool out area?
I'm trying to think if there's anything that comes to mind. I mean, I think the one thing to remember is, like, just remember the competition's not over, right? So don't do anything stupid like, I don't know, be like, oh, cool, we finished cross country at a horse trial. I always give them 2 grams of bute. Like, don't do anything stupid, because
you have to have your number on your horse and the entire time. That's your big one.
Oh yeah, that's actually a good one. So we get the little cardboard numbers that sit on their breastplate, right? And if you have that on your horse's halter for a week, by the time you go into show jumping on Sunday, the officials will not be able to read the number because it'll be all dilapidated and melted from the water. So what we always do is get white electrical tape and a black Sharpie, and we wrap it around the cheek piece of the halter and write the number on it in a black Sharpie. I actually also do that on cross country. I wrap electrical tape around the breastplate and then put my number in a black Sharpie there. Usually they'll let you get away with that. I certainly could understand if the officials were like, no, that's not a big enough number. It's important to know, and I'm laughing because I learned this from Emily, who I hope is still on, because when we were doing the whole penny gate down here, I thought that at FEI and USEF, the horses had to have a number on them, but actually they don't at USEF competitions. They do not have to have a bridle number on them, like when you're leading them around the horse show. But at FEI, you do. So anytime your horse leaves the stall, anytime your horse is being led around, when your horse finishes cross country, if you, by rule, now again, they're not going to be ridiculous, but by rule, if you finish cross country and you pull off all your tack and you put your halter on your horse and you're cooling it out, your horse has to have a number on that halter. And keep in mind as well, a lot of us don't want to be cooling our horses out in our fancy leather halters, so we put on a nylon wash halter. Well, if your number's on your fancy leather halter, it's not going to help you much when you're in your nylon halter, so make sure it's on both.
Great tip. Love that. Okay, so then the following morning, Sunday morning, prior to show jumping, is there always a horse inspection? What can you expect from that horse inspection?
So, at a short, usually, not always, usually you're going to have show jumped and then gone cross country. If you're at a short where you show jump after cross country, then yes, there is a vet inspection before you show jump. It's usually informal. To be honest, you don't have to braid for any of them, but at the shorts it's more acceptable. You don't have to braid. You can kind of show up and, don't be a slob, but whatever. For the longs, typically you put on something you would go to church in, and you have your horse braided, you have them well turned out, and then yes, you have to present your horse. It's a formal vet inspection for a long before you're allowed to move on to the final phase of show jumping.
Okay, and then show jumping, can you kind of expect that? Does everything kind of run the same way as it would a normal horse trial?
Boots.
Well, okay, yeah. So a couple things at FEI for show jumping, if you're going to wear hind boots, you have to have the hind boots put on in front of the FEI steward.
At the ring.
Right there at the ring. If you have a horse that's incredibly difficult, you can request that the steward comes back to the stall and watches you put the boots on in your stall. But honestly, don't do it unless your horse is a real hassle, because they'll do it, but they have so much going on that it really is hard on them.
They try to find as quiet a place as possible too.
So like, if you're going to go to an FEI, you really should have a friend there to help you. A groom, whether they're paid or somebody you're just like plying with beer and cigarettes, I don't know, but you need to have somebody there that is dedicated to help you out so that they can put those boots on for you, because you certainly can get off, put the boots on and then get back on, but it's who's going to hold your horse's head then, right? So you got to plan ahead. You have to have a team in there. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure if it's your first FEI competition, on Tuesday or Wednesday, take your show jumping boots to the stewards, have them look at them, and have them weigh them because they have to be under a certain weight.
And the elastic has to be a certain width.
Yes. So, and not only does the elastic have to be a certain width, it differs if it's a stud that you pull over and it snaps in,
or Velcro,
or if it's Velcro, or it's different, the rules of the width of that elastic. And I would be lying if I told you I could recite them. But I know I had to pull off a pair of boots this year at Ocala because it was just a random one of the stewards was doing a very good job and noticed they were too narrow. And so you can't really argue with it. It's a rule, and it's your job to know all the rules. It's the steward's job to try to help you not get yourself eliminated. So go up to them early. The boots, when you come out of your show jumping round, they could, and very often do, ask you to stop. You stand on a rubber mat, they pull the boots off, and they weigh the boots. And if you're overweight, you're done.
Wow. Oh my goodness. Wait. Sorry. If they're overweight, you're eliminated?
Yeah.
Even if and that's pre-show jumping?
After.
No,
that's if you come out of show jumping.
Correct. If you show jump with boots that weigh too much, you could get eliminated. Okay. Most of the boots, the name brand boots you're going to have are going to be underweight. But the thing to remember is all of these silly rules, like don't give your horse a treat. You need to put your boots on in front of the steward. Boots have to be under a certain weight. This wasn't the officials being like, we want to have complete control of these people. This was competitors cheating, trying to find ways to get around rules, and the officials had to then say, right, okay, guys, so Jon broke the rule and got away with it, and we know about it. So now, because of Jon, you have to come back, and everybody has to get their boots weighed.
Yeah. Okay. And then that reminds me, I know this was a thing that happened at Kentucky this year, but are the bit allowances, are the bits that are allowed at FEI competitions different than they are at horse trials?
Yes.
Okay. No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
So.
Yes. We're going to disagree on that.
I am the chairman of the sport committee.
How many times a day do you say that, Jon?
Today once.
How many times a day do we disagree?
Here's the deal. The USEF this year changed the rule and deferred all of our bit rules to the FEI. So if you want to know if a bit that you're using is legal, you can go on to the FEI TAC app and you can look it up. It is impossible.
It's an impossible.
But if you're smart, like Jen, you can usually figure it out pretty good.
I send pictures.
There is one exception now to that rule, which is the bit in question at Kentucky. The USEF said that bit is allowed, and so now you can jump your horse in that bit at national horse trials.
So does that mean they're not the same for the USEF and the FEI? Is that what that means?
But you cannot jump in that bit at FEI. So that Myler combination bit is not FEI legal as of right now. It might be by next season, but right now it is not. But at USEF competitions it is. But other than that, USEF follows FEI.
When you take your boots up to the steward, take your bit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the
Smart.
diameter of the bit matters, and they don't mind. They would much rather you ask.
Okay.
I have no problem with that.
So, get your bit checked, get your boots checked. Don't use a dressage.
Show jumping. You have to salute in an FEI competition. It's actually a rule. You have to salute in show jumping to the judge.
Wow. Okay. Really, really, really good information. I did not know that.
And real quick on that, since we're there, Kinsey. So you have to salute. They will then blow a whistle or sound the tone. You are going to be nervous. You're going to hear your heart beating through your ears. You may not know if they rang the bell. So there's a couple things you can do in that situation. You can look for the timer, which most FEI events will have. And if it's counting down from 45 seconds, you're good to go. If you can't find the timer, you can actually go up and say, excuse me, I didn't hear the bell. Have you rung it? It also is not against the rules for a spectator to say, John, you deaf old man, they blew the whistle, you're good to go. So don't panic, just think clearly, and if you're not sure, just go up to the judge and say, I didn't hear the bell, I'm sorry, did you ring it? And then they can re-ring the bell at that point, or say, yeah, you got 10 seconds, go. But you can ask.
Okay. Really, really helpful. And then we got, and Robin, I know you're in chat with some really great questions. I promise I'm going to ask those questions. So as far as equipment goes for show jumping, it's the bit and the boots. And then for dressage, you can't use a dressage whip. Are there any other equipment in any of the three phases that might differ from what is the usual? Like, are there different stud or different spur rules or anything like that?
I don't think the spur rules are any different. Just to be clear on the dressage whip, you can take a dressage whip into the first warm-up. You just can't leave that warm-up and go trot around the competition rings with it in your hand. I believe if you do, it's a -2. And I think I'm pretty sure if you go into the test with it, it's a -2. No, it's elimination.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
They keep changing that.
Don't do it. Just don't do it. Okay. After show jumping, is there anything you have to do before you can leave?
Yeah. So like we said, you're going to exit the ring. The stewards are going to be there. You're going to be so excited because you jumped double clear and you won the event. You're going to be bouncing up and down. And the stewards are going to want to see your horse. They're going to want to look at it. And like I said, they might ask you to take off your boots, not your boots, but your horse's boots. They're going to want to check all that stuff. So keep being respectful of the officials. Then the other thing to remember is you're still under drug rules for what, an hour after? For an hour after the competition, 30 minutes to an hour. Go with an hour because we're saying it's 30 or an hour. So let's go with an hour. So like a lot of times I will, after an event, whether it's a shorter or long, be like, you know what, this horse was a trooper and I'm going to take a couple Advil. So I'm going to give this horse a little Banamine or some Bute or something like that, which I think is a nice, kind thing to do. But just wait for an hour. Make sure you're not going to have a drug tester show up an hour after the awards. There you go. Make sure, because they could show up and say, hey, we want to drug test your horse. I've never had it happen that way, but it conceivably could.
They usually follow you back from the ring.
Okay. And am I correct that there's, like, throughout the competition, they have every right to, like, check your horse's mouth and check your horse for blood anywhere? Or, like, are they checking for, like, anything else within the mouth? Is it, like, what kind of things should you be really cognizant of throughout the competition?
You need to watch rubs. And look, when you're training a horse and getting it fit to go to an FEI competition, especially at the upper levels, there's going to be abrasion, like girth galls. You might, God forbid, get a spur rub.
The more fit they get, the more sensitive their skin gets.
So the officials are looking for stuff like that, but you're not going to get eliminated for a rub unless the rub is red and bleeding and irritated. Then they conceivably could. They're looking for holes in the corners of your horse's mouth. I have never had an official come up to a horse, though, and like say, I need to see inside your horse's mouth. Like they aren't going to do that. What they're looking for is real obvious. Like if you're pulling on your horse's face and they can see rubs in the corners of its mouth, they're going to come and say something, or I hope they would. If they see a bloody spur rub, they're going to come and say something. They're not going to be, not like it's the KGB going around like trying to catch you out. But they are watching and looking for horse welfare. They want to make sure that things are being dealt with correctly.
Yeah. Perfect. That's really helpful. Okay. So Robin is asking for you guys to talk about how to prepare for the jog and what to do if you get held.
Okay. So
cry.
No, don't cry. So a couple things. Prepare for the jog. Teach your horse to lead, like to the field, back in from the field. If you have other people who handle your horses, make sure that they lead them and they're at your horse's shoulder. Don't drag your horse around because it's going to learn to be drugged down the jog strip, and that's a pain. Not to mention like just the basic horsemanship side of that is terrible because it does transfer through to when you're riding it. But yes, so when you go to the jog, and Jen, step in and correct me whenever you'd like, I know you will. So when you go to the jog, you have to have your bridle on, your horse is going to be all prettied up and beautiful, and you're going to go out, you're going to walk up to the ground jury. One thing you want to do, and usually this is just like little details, usually the stewards will tell you, like if you walk up, sometimes the judges are on the right side of your horse, sometimes the judges are on the left side of your horse. They want to see your number. So if they're on the left, put the horse's bridle number on its left. If they're on the right, put it on the right. You're going to walk up, you're going to halt in front of the ground jury. You want to go stand in front of your horse, hold it up, both reins at that point, and a rein in each hand. Try to get your horse to reasonably well stand up. They don't all. Some of them want to just splay out. Try not to let them rest a leg, because that's just like, oh, I wonder what's wrong with that one. Why is it resting that left hind? If you have a horse that you know is going to be difficult and try to kick the ground jury, like maybe say, hey, heads up, guys, this one is a little bit dangerous, because like remember, the ground jury is just people like us, and they don't want to get kicked either. But get up there, say good afternoon. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here. Thank them for being there, because even though they're getting paid, they are not getting paid well enough. Then you're going to walk off. You're going to trot your horse down to the end. There's usually a flower pot that eats horses, so be ready for that. You want to turn your horse away from you, around the flower pot, not towards you, away from you. And then you want to walk a few steps till your horse is straight, and then you trot back down, and you keep trotting right past the ground jury all the way to the end. And then they say, number 83, Robin Harder, Gold to Blue, Montverde, accepted. And you're done. You go back to your barn, and then you start sweating about your dressage test.
Practice jogging in your bridle at home.
And practice jogging in your shoes if you're a girl and thinking of wearing fancy shoes, which, by the way, don't wear fancy shoes. Why would you wear fancy shoes when you're out jogging a horse? The number of girls, I'm sorry, that I see in open-toed shoes and heels at vet jogs is astounding. Like, what? I love girls in open-toed shoes, but it ain't supposed to happen at the vet jog. It is totally inappropriate, and you're just asking, one, to get stepped on and have your foot degloved, and two, to trip and fall and look like an idiot. So don't do that. Also, girls, like just what would you wear to the, and guys too, quite honestly, but all of us, what would you wear to church or the synagogue or the mosque or whatever? What would you wear there? Not what would you wear to the nightclub?
Okay, thanks
Unless
for that.
your horse was really lame, and then on Sunday you might want a short skirt, but that's something else.
Okay, so your that's really helpful, and Robin said good stuff. Thank you. One thing we didn't cover is what to do if you're held. So let's do that, and then also as far as on the attire, is there attire guidelines? Like if you show up in your riding pants and a polo shirt, like is that okay? Like why don't people do that? I don't know.
It's all tradition. It is not required that you dress up at all. You could go out there in a bridle, unbraided, with shavings in your tail and mane, in a dirty old like tank top, and they actually can't not let you go.
I think kilts look great.
You can use a kilt. I'm not Scottish, but you could. No, it's all about just being respectful to the ground jury. But there's no requirement for attire there. If you get held, they are going to say you got held, you need to go to the hold box. So you and one person can go to the hold box with you, one of your people. So that can be your vet, that could be your wife, that could be your boyfriend, but you get one person, and don't let it be somebody that you really like, that you want to cry on their shoulder. Make it be somebody who can help you determine if you want to represent this horse or not. When you get there, the vet for the horse show is going to look at your horse. They're going to get some information from the ground jury, like, okay, we were concerned about X, Y, or Z. They're going to look at that. Now, they are not allowed to pick up your horse's legs and flex them. They're not allowed. I don't even know if they're allowed to really
They're allowed,
they're not really allowed to even palpate your horse, I don't believe.
they're allowed to hoof test, they're not allowed to palpate.
Yeah, so they can put a hoof tester on, but they can't go squeezing and poking and bending hocks and ankles and things like that. But what they are going to do is watch your horse jog. And they're going to usually give you a little bit of input like, yeah, I see what they were talking about. And, it's there for sure. I would be a little concerned about it. Or, yeah, I see what they're talking about. This is what it is. They're not going to tell you to represent or not to represent. That is your decision. And I have made decisions in the box that I think are very good, and I've made a couple that in hindsight I'm like, it probably doesn't look good that I tried to represent that one. I shouldn't have done that. It is a hard thing to do that on Sunday morning after your horse smokes around cross country and it's got a little bit of a nod, and you're usually, whether you're right or wrong, you're convinced it's not a big deal, and you want to represent. I've done it. And sometimes you do it and you're out there and you make the turn back and your horse is doing this, and it's not because it's listening to Dr. Dre, and you think, shoot, that was really stupid. I shouldn't have done it, but you did it. So they can, if they think it's like a heinous act, they can give you a yellow card for presenting an unsound horse. So be mindful of what you're representing and how close to right you think it is and how important it is for you to finish this competition, and if it is in your horse's best interest to finish that competition. And again, I've convinced myself of that. I'm, not proud of it, but convinced myself like, oh, I need to get this done, because if I don't, then I have to do another one this year, and that's going to be harder on him than just jumping when he's a little bit sore. So you got to weigh that in your head, but that's why you need that person in your corner saying, hey, don't do it. Or, yeah, let's give it a shot. You're close enough. We'll give it a try.
Yeah. Okay. Robin asked another great question regarding the vaccines we talked about at the beginning. If they've had vaccines every 6 months forever, do they still need another booster?
No. There is a date, 2005, 2008. If they have a full history of vaccinations within, I don't know if it's 6 months or the year, there's a statement that your vet can write in your passport to say that this horse is considered fully vaccinated.
Wonderful. Okay. Sarah asked some great questions. If you're planning on competing in a 1-star, should you be competing preliminary level, or maybe modified level is sufficient? Although you may have qualified for an FEI as a rider, how do you know if you're ready for that type of competition?
Okay, so 1-star, I wish I had all the heights here, but 1-star show jumping is preliminary show jumping height. So that's one thing that's important to know. So you might want to have gone preliminary because the show jumping will be taller than in modified. What's interesting is modified cross country, the top spread of the fences is actually wider than the top spread of 1-star fences, right? So I think I said that right. So modified cross country fences are wider than 1-star.
Yes.
But other than that, it's exactly the same cross country for the most part. Like the difficulty, the number of efforts, the basic guidelines of a 1-star is the same as modified. I don't even know. I don't even know if they have shorts and longs at 1-star anymore.
No.
So the cross country, you're going to be fine. The dressage, you're going to be fine. If you've only done modifieds, just know the show jumping is going to be 5 centimeters taller. Jen's trying to pull it up right now.
Yes.
I got to turn the AC on. The show jumping is going to be taller, so you might, if you aren't super comfortable with that, you might want to do some preliminary or go to a horse show and jump. What is it, 1.10 meters, Jen? Is that right? I think that's right.
Yes.
So you're going to want to jump a little taller show jumping. That's going to be the only difference.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. And then what is your guys' perspective as coaches on, once you're qualified as a rider, when are you really ready for your first FEI?
For short, I think you're ready pretty quick, to be honest, as long as you have all of the paperwork side of it done. If you've done done a national horse trial at the level, you're ready to go do an FEI short. So I think the thing to remember is when shorts first came out, and at that time they were called CICs, now they're called them shorts. They were just a way for the FEI to try to make a worldwide level of horse trials, so that if you went to a horse trial in Guatemala, it was to the standard as a horse trial in the US. That's what this all started with. We have now made them something more special than that. But really, if you're ready, the show jumping is going to be a little taller, but that's about the only difference.
Okay, super helpful. Sarah is also asking about kind of the fitness that you would recommend for both, horse and rider going into their first 1-star.
Okay, so I've got Irving, who is just going modified now. He is galloping here at home. He is doing trot sets as well. So Irving is doing 6 days a week of work. He is doing a 25-minute trot once a week. He is doing a gallop once a week. In that gallop, we do a 15-minute trot. He walks for 3 minutes, and then he does 3 4-minute canters with 3-minute breaks between each canter set. I don't have hills.
Okay. And as a rider, if you feel like if you're fit enough to be going around a modified or a preliminary cross country, you're probably fit enough to go around a 1-star.
Yes, I think you're definitely fit enough to do a 1-star short. The long, there is no long, so yeah, so you're good to go. Yeah,
wonderful.
I mean, we could get into the whole rider fitness thing, but if you're fit enough to do a modified, you should be fit enough to do a 1-star.
Okay. And Megan is asking if there are any like biggest FEI rules, and we've covered a lot of them, like boots, bits, kind of like the general equipment ones. She also asked about products that test. Is there anything different about like the drug limitations at an FEI for either horse or rider, I guess?
Don't do drugs, first of all.
Well, I mean, like for a rider, don't you need to have any like prescription medication that you're on, like registered with the FEI or something? Is that a thing?
Yeah, no, there is stuff that you cannot use. So one of them is, correct me if I'm wrong on this one now, but I'm nearly certain ADHD medication is a big problem.
Adderall is a big problem. Most drugs, if you have a prescription from your doctor, you get your doctor and you to fill out a form called a TUE. Adderall needs more than that because it's very highly regulated. But if you're on insulin, you have to have a TUE for insulin. So your best bet, WADA, WADA, the WADA website controls that. And there is actually question and answers on the USEF site as well. But if you go on WADA, it'll tell you when you need your TUE. You can go on there and do some investigating. For horses, horses are very highly regulated at the FEI levels. You can't have any anti-inflammatories. No, you can be on Regimate for mares. Geldings can't have it. And if in doubt, ask your vet and ask them well in advance, because most drugs have a withdrawal and you can get off them easily enough, and you can work through what you need them for and what you don't need them for with some education.
If your mare is on Regimate, do you need to have that like listed by your vet somewhere?
Yes, they used to actually make you go aside and give it, but now I believe you just have to declare it.
Okay. Because I feel like I heard from somebody like a gelding got tested with Regiment and it was like sharing hay with a mare. I don't know. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that can happen. The other thing that I think can be a little bit helpful in case you get into trouble, we had it happen here one time where we had a horse, was on a medication. It was a therapeutic medication. We knew we were doing an FEI. We wrote down the date the horse had to come off of it. And then I didn't double check to make sure that the horse actually came off of the medication, and it was on it for about a week longer than it was supposed to be. So I'm sure you can still do this.
Yes.
You can get your horse tested before you go to the event for whatever substance you're worried about. So let's say I was giving my horse supplement X and I knew it would test. I found through my vet a lab that I knew would test for substance X. I waited until the last possible moment because obviously it doesn't do me any good if I test 2 weeks out. It's going to probably still test positive for it. So I tested at the last possible moment, planning to go to this event for that specific drug. In my case, the horse was fine. It did not have a positive test, and so we were able to go. But you'd rather find out ahead of time and switch divisions to the national class than go get a positive drug test and get suspended. That's a bummer.
But
Yeah.
every supplement you're on, everything that you do, you need to go looking. And again, it's easiest to talk to your vet. Make sure you have a vet that's comfortable with the FEI rules, and send them a picture of the ingredients list and find out.
Okay. Incredible. Well, you guys, this has been a absolute wealth of information. I feel like I'm ready to go do an FEI after this. I do know that like a lot of these regulations are changing pretty consistently. How do you guys stay up to date? How do you recommend your clients stay up to date on kind of what is allowed, what's not allowed, and what these rules are, if you don't have a Jen to ask?
Get a vet who knows the FEI rules and communicate with them really well about what your horse is on, what the medications are. Make sure they know everything. Don't be sneaky and be like, oh, I'm not going to tell Sally, Dr. Sally, that I'm doing this because I want her to be okay with everything. Like, you got to let your vet know, but it needs to not be just any old vet. It needs to be a vet who understands the FEI rules.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, do you guys have any last advice for somebody going and trying to tackle their first FEI?
Don't clip your whiskers or your ears.
Oh yeah, you can't clip whiskers anymore. Your muzzle, you can't clip your muzzle. You can't clip out your ears.
You can't clip out your ears.
And you can't clip your horse at the event either. But the big thing that I would say, because we could come up with stuff like that all the time, ask questions. Ask questions beforehand, ask questions of people who know, ask questions of your vet. When you get to the horse show, ask questions of the stewards. Just ask them.
Yeah.
They're going to try to help you. If you're being sneaky, then you're going to get in trouble. Don't be sneaky. But just ask. You're better off to ask and make it correct, because this is the one thing I will say, doing it and pleading ignorance and then asking for forgiveness does not work at FEI competitions. They're rules. The officials have to follow the rules. That was what that whole bit thing was about at Kentucky. It's a rule. And sometimes you get unlucky like that where it's like, wow, we didn't even know that was a rule. Most of the officials didn't. But usually 99.9% of the time, they know it. They will make it right. They will find a way to keep you in the competition. Just ask them.
Yeah. Awesome. One thing I've learned just since starting Ride IQ is if you ever want to wear like a saddle pad in an FEI competition that has like a logo on it, there are specific rules about the size of that logo, like where it can be, like they're like all of this stuff, things you just kind of wouldn't think about going to a regular horse trial. There's a lot of stuff like that. So don't take anything for granted. Google it, look it up, or ask somebody.
Okay, real quick, I know you got to go because you've got stuff pressing, but I would very quickly tell a story about that. When we were at Ocala at the Nations Cup, Sunday, Buck Davidson came up to me and said, I got to borrow your pants. And I was like, what? And no, I need to borrow your pants. I don't have any pants without a logo on them. My logo's too big. So Buck had to wear my riding pants, which I think I wore on cross country the day before, the poor guy. Yeah, it wasn't pretty. Fortunately, it was cold there, so it was more like they were muddy than they were like sweaty. But yeah, because he had a logo down one leg and realized they were too big and they would not let him jump. They're harder about it in Europe than they are here, but yeah, you gotta watch your logos.
Wow, that is good to know.
So Buck's gotten in my pants.
Not surprised. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for sharing your time with us and sharing your knowledge on this topic with us. I know I learned a lot. I know everybody who attended live learned a lot, and a lot of people will benefit from this. So as always, you guys are the best, and thank you so much. Everybody who submitted questions, thank you as well, and I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a good night.